My comments, the term I've heard that used is community of interest as far as doing the state legislature, and I really want to emphasize that. I live in a township that has 4 precincts. We have 2 state senators. We have 3 state representatives. If I moved across the street to another township, we'd actually have I'd have a different state representative. This makes it very cumbersome in our dealings in the local township. And like I say, I want to reinforce this idea of community of interest. I realize some townships may have to be split, but certainly not the way they are now. And so I'd encourage you to really emphasize your community of interest approach to this. Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot something very important at the very onset. For the committee members, please introduce themselves. We'll start over on this side.
Representative Wesco, District 21, easier, walking from Liberty, Lakeville, up in Mishawaka, over in Elkhart, down in the southern half of Auburn Township, down to Lafayette.
Representative Dave Yarde, District 52. I represent parts of DeKalb County, Noble County, and LaGrange County.
Representative Soliday from District 4, that's Porter County, Jasper County, part of Glick.
I'm Representative Kathy Richardson. I live in Novasville and represent Novasville, Fishers, and the town of McCordsville in Hancock County, and I serve as the vice chair for the reapportionment.
State Senator John Broden. I represent most of South Bend and part of the city of Mishawaka in St. Joseph County, Senate District 10.
I'm Sue Glick. I represent all of LaGrange County, part of Noble County, part of DeKalb County, part of Steuben County, and part of Kosciuszko County.
I'm Randy Hitt. I represent all of Cass, Miami, and Fulton counties, parts of Kosciuszko, Wabash, and Pulaski.
I'm Senator Brandt Hershman from District 7, and I represent all parts of Jasper, White, Tippecanoe, Carroll, Clinton, and Howard counties.
And I'm Senator Sue Landske. I represent the 6th Senate District, which is South Lake, a little bit of Porter County, all of Newton, and Benton counties on the western side of the state. Thank you for bearing with me. I thought you might like to know who we all are and where we're from. Our next speaker will be Phil Straw. Phil?
I looked at the maps and the redistricting back there. I'd like to see things consider the economic impact here at groups, areas of businesses, look at that and grouping things together. Not all
And Robertson? Pat?
disenfranchised for the last 10 years. I know there were lots of games played over the last reapportionment, and I'm asking you to please use common sense in areas of interest. Elkhart County should be one district along with St. Joe County. This is a geographical livelihood, I think. I live just inside the city limits in Elkhart, and when I went to vote 10 years ago, I did not know that I had been ousted out of my regular. In fact, I wouldn't vote until they called downtown to be sure there wasn't a mistake made. So because of that, I appreciate so much you're providing input to the community and people who've been affected by the reapportionment. Please, no more games. Let's do it without trying to hurt someone else, please.
Thank you, Pat. Andrew Straw. Andrew.
Thank you for the opportunity to have a big topic. This is so important for politics and I'd say Kokomo a little less. And for our growth in this region, that's most important.
Thank you, Andrew. Kyle Hannon.
I'm Kyle Hannon, the Greater Elkhart Chamber of Commerce. We're an organization of 1,100 members and employ more than 40,000 people. For several years, we had a position, a policy that we needed to be one district that be the same as South Bend. We didn't want to be tied that way. We didn't want to be separated from South Bend. And so we were kind of alarmed a little bit when they split up our county 10 years ago. Since that time, though, we discovered it's really kind of nice having the two congressmen to represent us when we have our D.C. fly-ins. We go out, and recently we've had both sides of the aisle, and found that was really kind of helpful. So we're not as concerned about whether Elkhart County is split or not. However, the lines do need to make a little more sense. I also serve as a vice precinct committee for, I think, what is probably the farthest west precinct in the 3rd Congressional District. And as you've heard from others, and we'll hear from more, that's kind of confusing. It's very important for, as you go forward, to not just think of boundaries, ditches and streams and things, but also think of the economic ties that we have with one another. It's very important that Elkhart and South Bend are together because of our economic ties. And I would encourage that future districts consider that. But if part of our county goes in the 3rd district too, we kind of like to have two congressmen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Richard Strebel.
Good morning. My thought with this, I'm an independent, so I'm not Republican or Democrat, but I think that the complexity of the lines on a lot of these districts is just absurd. I really think we should minimize the number of terms and twists and things like that, and try to keep just a large area instead of some zigzag that cuts halfway across the state. So I'd like to see this whole process, or the lines simplified, so that it just makes sense when you look at it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Susan Chilber. Susan?
Good morning. There's a few items that I have that I'd like to speak with, and they're on the sheet that I handed in. First of all, time zones are an issue, I think, as far as the voting is concerned. South Bend or St. Joe and Elkhart County are on the same time zone, and we need to keep the two together, and Elkhart County needs to be one. I think that you have, when you don't have counties that are together as communities of interest, communities of media, in the same represented districts, that's just insane, and it's asking for a lot of mischief as far as the votings are concerned. Elkhart and South Bend are both in the same media community, which is the South Bend district, or South Bend media. Michigan City and everything west is out of Chicago. Anything east of us is out of Fort Wayne. Elkhart is not well represented by being tied into a Fort Wayne district that we have no interest in, except to maybe run down and do some shopping once in a while. So that is not my idea of a good voting block, or whatever you call it. The other thing is, when you've got people that live in one district and don't realize that they're living in the 3rd district and their businesses are in the 2nd district, they don't have any way of getting good representatives on both. So that's crazy. We need to keep the counties intact. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Peter Richou. Peter, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your last name correctly.
Good morning. It's Peter Recchio. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Please forgive me.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I echo Susan Chilberg's comments and points towards making sure that communities of interest are truly adhered to. Simply, the fact of the matter is, Elkhart and St. Joe County for decades, centuries, have had similar and the same community of interest. And Michigan City and LaPorte County has been a separate entity, more towards Porter and Lake County in their community of interest. So it is just as unfair for people in Michigan City to be outside of their community interest and in the 2nd District as it is Michigan City to be inside a community of interest in District 2. On the eastern edge of our area, I have an interesting story to tell. Both in the past 2 elections, the primary and general election, I had the privilege of, from the beginning to the end of the polling times, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., to stand in the parking lot of a polling station that had 2 precincts represented. 1 precinct in the 3rd District and 1 precinct in the 2nd District. Mind you, this polling station was 4 blocks from my house, and my daughter, who lives 4 blocks in the other direction from this polling station, is in a different district. As people went in, we asked them if they were aware of what district they were in, and all of them said, sure, I'm in the 2nd District. I'm going to be voting in the Wolarski-Donnelly race. And we had to tell them in many cases, no, you're in the 3rd District. You're going to be voting for in the Stutzman district. They had no idea that. Here after 10 years, they had no idea because they were energized on what meant most to their community, and that's 2nd District items. So Elkhart and South Bend, in their entirety, are communities of interest under any definition and need to be together. It's very clear that this needs to be done in the best interest of fairness and adhering to all of the policies for redistricting. We please ask you to consider these things.
Thank you, Peter. Matthew Lynch. Matthew has a map for us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm definitely in agreement with a lot of the stated objectives that have already been presented. I think it's important that we preserve traditional neighborhoods, that we preserve communities of interest, that we protect voting rights of all citizens, that we adhere to compactness, truly, that we look at and have compact shapes. And I want to talk about some of the shapes related to the Indiana House districts from this community, and that would respect county borders. Let me first talk about shapes of 3 districts. Indiana House District 8 looks similar, very similar to a handgun, and I think has been designed, in my opinion, to keep an individual or a party in power. House District 5 looks like a deranged donkey, and I think similarly has the interest of keeping a person, an individual, or a party in power. And then Indiana House District 21 looks like a dragon or a priest or a creature. I think there's a better way to look at the things, the stated objectives, and to meet them without having crazy shapes that make no sense except to protect an individual or a political party. And with that, I'd like to talk to you specifically about 2 House districts, Indiana State House districts, Indiana State House District 8 specifically. Right now, as I said, it looks like a handgun. With the trigger going into South Bend, the good bit of that district covers half of Granger, goes part of the way west all the way west following the toll road, but dips down into parts of South Bend as necessary to pick up voters to keep the individual or the political power and the political party in power. I would suggest that you combine Granger, that you don't split them apart anymore, that you keep that community together, and that would, if you do that, you can have, instead of a handgun, you could have a very symmetrical district that would look more like a rectangle instead of a handgun. And so, I would plead to you, in order to make sure that we protect the communities of interest in Granger and all of the northern part of St. Joe County, that House District 8 becomes one symmetrical rectangle instead of handgun shape. And I think that will, again, preserve traditional neighborhoods, preserve communities of interest. It will adhere to compactness. It will be a simple shape, and it will respect one county boundaries instead of incurring from Elkhart with House District 48. It will adhere to just one county. That's House District 8. Indiana House District 5. As I said, I believe it looks like a deranged donkey. And let me just say that if you stopped it at the boundary of St. Joe County and kept it from incurring into Elkhart County, and you squared it off so that it would take in more parts of Mishawaka 3 and Mishawaka 4, again, it will preserve traditional neighborhoods. It will preserve the communities of interest. It will protect the voting rights of the citizens. It will be one simple shape, squaring it off, and it will respect the county boundaries. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. And the last thing I would say is, let's end the charades and let's work together to draw districts that don't simply have the goal of keeping one political figure or party in power, but let's make districts that represent our communities of interest. End the mindless gerrymandering and games, and let's do this redistricting right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. If you happen to have Representative Saunders, you can give that to him. He's in the front row here. Thank you very much. He didn't introduce himself. He's our secret weapon there. John Yaney. John?
Good morning, and thank you for being here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I also want to thank everyone here because we've seen a lot of sort of scary things in the news, and it sort of struck me how peaceful and how everyone's here presenting ideas peacefully but without any shouting or demonstrations. I found the last speaker really interesting. We were almost talking about Rorschach tests and almost with some Freudian underpinnings there. But if I could speak anecdotally, I'm a member of the 3rd District. And I can, from my house, I can hit a 9-iron into the 2nd District. And if you knew my golf game, it really, that's not saying much. I wanted to, my point is let's use some logic in the way that the congressional districts are drawn. As a member of the 3rd District, the media center of my district is an hour and a half away, in Fort Wayne, with South Bend being 20 minutes away. And, I'm there several times a week. All the broadcast media that comes to my house is from the South Bend, Mishawaka area. I live 3 blocks away from my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They're in the 2nd District. I'm in the 3rd District. We live within the same county, within the same city limits, within the same township, and yet we have 2 different congressional representatives. I would echo what most people have been saying here. Let's use some logic. Let's keep Elkhart County together. Let's keep the city together, certainly the townships together. Again, thank you for hearing our voices.
Thank you, John. Steve Francis.
Hello, good morning. My name is Steve Francis. I'm here representing the Sierra Club as the state chairperson of one of the largest environmental and conservation organizations in the United States. I'm state chair of the chapter for Indiana. And I'm glad that you come outside of Indianapolis because I rarely make it down there. It's a 6-hour drive, so I appreciate your taking the time to travel through northern Indiana. My comments really will relate more to the process than the actual district lines, because I think whatever you do, there's going to be controversy. You know that. I do think it's unfortunate that we couldn't, between 2000 and 2010, come up with a different system and taken this process outside of the legislature to a non-legislative commission of some type, because no matter what happens in this particular environment this year, there's going to be claims that it's part seen that today to some extent because you're getting, principles expounded, but those principles immediately go to calculations of anyone who is politically attuned as to what the impact will be upon incumbents and upon the partisan nature of our politics. So, if there's some way to still do that legally, I would suggest that you look at that, perhaps compose a group that can be considered non-legislative in nature to avoid the claim that in a democracy, we expect voters to choose their politicians, not the politicians to choose their voters. And that's what will happen in this process. So in terms of the principles, number one, it's got to be open and transparent. I don't see any maps up here of proposed changes. That's a problem because we have 1 month to go, and when those maps are produced, I don't know if you're going to make another round robin of the state. I hope you do, to where we can comment on those maps in this same kind of forum, and whether you have time to do that. Second, hopefully you'll be accepting maps. I'm pleased to see that you are today, and that we can have opportunity to comment not just in Indianapolis, but around the state. Third, regarding communities of interest, the devil's in the details, of course, in terms of communities of interest. I think you need to protect minority and disempowered populations, particularly those that were non-traditional minorities, as you draw the maps. Second, when you talk about Michigan City versus Elkhart in South Bend, we see Michigan City as close to to South Bend as Elkhart is. To some extent, we often go to the lake, so I don't think that there is a case to be made that somehow one city is not a community of interest and another is in terms of the second district. Third, I would hope that you do avoid salamanders, which was the origin of the gerrymandering, with all the different arms. But people, I hope, realize that when you draw districts, you've got to balance populations. You've got to take into account considerations that may have districts look a little weird or like dragons or whatever. It's the intent underneath that drawing of the line that I think needs to be out in the open and transparent to all to see. Why was that arm drawn out? What was the purpose for it? What are the principles that you are using in terms of your work in the state legislature? If you're not going to have a more independent commission do it, what are your principles that you all agree upon, that you will follow, and then you will gauge any map you produce against those principles? And I encourage you to make those principles known, make sure that you reach agreement across party lines and divisions so that we know what principles you took into account to draw those lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Carol McDowell.
Good morning. Appreciate you having us this morning, giving us all the opportunity to tell you what we think. It's kind of a nice way to handle things, and I think we all appreciate it. I'll step a little closer. Sorry about that. My name is Carol McDowell, and I've lived and worked in Elkhart, Indiana for 32 years. I raised 2 children in Elkhart, and I own a small business employing about 30 people. I've served my community as a volunteer for numerous nonprofits, the school system, and both the city and county governments, on boards and committees. I've held elected office, and at one time worked directly for a sitting mayor. I tell you all of this so that you can understand where my comments come from, and that I do know my community, not better than anybody else, but just that I do know it. I believe that there are at least 3 compelling reasons the Elkhart, Goshen, and South Bend communities must be in the same congressional district. They are economic, human, and financial in nature. Every day, more people drive into Elkhart to work than live in the cities of Goshen and Elkhart combined. They drive in from South Bend and beyond to come to Elkhart County to work. The similarity of needs of both Goshen Elkhart, and South Bend have been recognized over the years through joint meetings of chambers of commerce. And I will tell you up front that I totally disagree with Mr. Hannon's comments, even though I am a member of the Elkhart Chamber of Commerce. The whole of Elkhart County and St. Joseph County are intimately tied by the cross-fertilization of companies producing products and providing services. Separating out Goshen from the Elkhart-St. Joe County mix creates a lack of representation for the whole package that is this area of Indiana. But the damage done by this separation is not just economic. The truer damage is of a human nature. The last 3 years have been incredibly difficult for our area. We have led the state in unemployment and have had families from Elkhart to Goshen, Middlebury, New Paris, Wakarusa, and all around, daily struggling to make ends meet. Those with means in our communities came to the rescue as much as they could. That made the community pull together as a whole. As they pulled together to make it through this time, they came up, the sheer struggle left them with common goals, common mindsets, and needs in place. This commonality needs to be represented by one person, not divided between two. The whole of Elkhart County needs to be in the 2nd District. The third compelling reason for keeping all of Elkhart County in the St. Joseph County District is money. As the song says, money, money, money. The dollars spent for negative ads, positive ads, consultants, mailers, and on and on and on, as every one of you up there sitting knows, are enormous. Elections have become a big business. If you put Elkhart, if you split Elkhart down and put it into 2 media markets, actually probably 4 to 6 people will have to raise more money to do the job of representing the people. In today's age, we really don't need that, do we? We are all looking for funds. Putting everything in Elkhart County back together with St. Joe is the way I believe you have to go. So to summarize, all of Elkhart County needs to be with St. Joseph County because it serves the people best if those lines are drawn that way. Any variance from that, I do not believe provides good representation. Again, I thank you for our opportunity.
Thank you, Carol. Carol concludes the list of people that I have who wish to testify or present before us this morning. Is there anyone who else would like to speak to us who hasn't given us a sheet? We have some up here if you'd like to still sign in.
J.J. Weaver, and I'm here representing GMAC today. 10 years ago, when the lines were redrawn, I went to vote and found out I was voting in Mark Souter's race instead of Chris Chicola's race, and was completely shocked. When the lines were redrawn, it wasn't really made known that they were redrawn. I think that where I live now, we live in the 3rd District, and my husband owns a business in the 2nd District, and he drives 5 minutes to work every day. So it's very difficult for him to lobby or to try to talk to a congressman about, if he was talking about business, he has to talk to one. If he's talking about personal stuff, he has to go talk to another one. It's easier if he could talk to one all at the same time. Today is March 26th, and the redistricting needs to be done by April 29th. So I'm just, in my mind, wondering how much of these lines were already drawn. I'm watching a lot of your body language up here, and I'm just wondering how much of this is already done, is a done deal. So I don't know if you can answer, if anybody can answer that question, if that's the floor here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Did I see another person? Yes. Ms. Burke, if you could leave your sign-up sheet. Oh, Tom, Representative Saunders collected. Thank you.
My name is Craig Turner. I live in the 2nd District. I have to identify my home when I discuss legislation we represent
know exactly which district I live in with my zip code 46516. Now when I add the 4652, you know my home is in the 2nd district. I doubt if any of you representatives up here would know which district I was in unless the border was at the county line. So I'm for making the boundaries back between St. Joe and Elkhart. It's just too confusing for my representation to be separated when my neighbors are in the other district. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And I saw another. Yes. 2 more.
First of all, I would like to...
Your name, please?
I'm Jim Barnes.
Jim, thank you.
I am a retired physician. Yeah, I have been active in but that's really morally independent. I think that it would be good if we had a mission to draw the lines in the future. I think we're trying to come up with a bipartisan lines would be much fairer to everyone involved, so that every 10 years, depending on who's in office, you can have it. For the current year, I think I agree with people as far as keeping the lines straight. The number of areas, the more that we could hit Elkhart County, where I live, represented by straight lines that would go across the county line, I think we would be better.
Thank you, Jim.
Excuse me, my name is Jack Block. My first question is, I don't know, I just got here obviously a little late, if any of you had anything to do with the drawing of the lines 10 years ago, but it's an embarrassment. So I would recommend that each district, whether it be congressional, federal, or state, when you're done, look like a shape that's identifiable. Rectangle, circle, square, any shape would be good other than what we have. Secondly, when it comes to the congressional, I think just hearing people, Elkhart County clearly is, there was a lot of studies done during the major moves arguments years ago about the traffic patterns, work patterns of the citizens, and Elkhart and St. Joe County are very closely tied together in the same time zone, et cetera. As far as I can't see any reason those wouldn't end up being in the same districts at the federal level and the state level. That's even worse than the federal level, I think, in terms of the way those have been drawn. So I would like to see how it makes any sense to have Elkhart County as part of a state rep district and St. Joe County for one state rep district, but yet Elkhart County is part. We move St. Joe County into Elkhart County for one state rep, and we move some of Elkhart County back into St. Joe County for another state rep. That doesn't make any sense to me. Keep the Elkhart stuff and the St. Joe County stuff together when you're looking at state district house representation. It seems like there's enough population in those counties that you wouldn't have to take some of Granger and put it in Elkhart, some of Elkhart and Mishawaka for those house races. So again, the overarching theme I would say is to not be such an embarrassment. It should be some sort of identifiable shape next time. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
feel like we're outsiders. We get no representation. The most I ever read from my congressman or about my congressman was this last fall with Mr. Sauer. And that's about when I realized that please put us back with St. Joe County, because I don't really want to be with the Fort Wayne people. I don't want to listen to WOWO to find out what's going on with my congressman anymore. I'd rather listen to my local TV and my local radio station. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Oh, ma'am, could you please give your sheet to Tom? Thank you. Thank you.
One more thing. Does this involve, are any of you the Democrat?
Yes.
Or are you all back from Urbana? He went back. I guess he's too late to hear a voting person's information. Now this really upsets me that you have a Democrat walk out of the room, okay?
He had another meeting in his defense.
Isn't that all probably back in Urbana in the hot tub? But I'm really upset that he couldn't make time for us. Now what's the matter with him? He knew this meeting was coming. We're not important. That's what it comes across as. We are not important.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I appreciate the chance to speak. I'm not going to stand up here and profusely
May I
thank
have your name, please?
Brandon from Granger.
Brandon?
Yes, Brandon Bumbaugh. I'm not going to stand up here and profusely thank you all because I think it is your job and I'm glad you're doing it. And I just want to say we're not stupid and we know what gerrymandering is. I can understand that sometimes it's not going to work out to be a perfect square because sometimes genuinely economic interests or community interests do cross boundaries. But we're going to know who you are and what you did if you create gerrymandered districts. Just think about that. We're aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Anyone else? Yes, sir. I would like to add one other thing. I was just reminded for the benefit of everyone here, Representative Broden, who had to leave early, serves in the, Senator Broden serves in the Senate, and they have attended every session. They did not walk out. The Democrats have been there every day. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mrs. Chairman, and thank you for taking the time to meet with our senior. My name is Bruce Carter. I'm from Elkhart. I actually served in the legislative body in 1987 and 1988, so I'm familiar with the legislative process and somewhat familiar with the redistricting process. And I'm here to advocate one common goal here, and that is I think we should establish communities of interest. Okay, right now the city of Elkhart is represented by multiple state representatives. I believe the population density of this area would justify one state representative for the city of Elkhart. The county is also represented by multiple districts, both senators and representatives. The population density of Elkhart County would justify maybe one senator from the Elkhart County plus a portion of another. So I think it makes sense that we begin to think about the communities as you do the redistricting. It's much easier for a representative to represent a single community as opposed to multiple communities. There's not only the legislative process that has to be considered, but also constituent service. A good portion of your work is related to constituent service, making sure that the various cities and towns' interests are taken care of, that their tax situations are resolved, that their economic development interests are resolved, that their local elected representatives have a voice in the legislative process as well as the administrative process in the state of Indiana. And it is much easier if you can establish a single representative for as many single
And I was a little disappointed that Senator Broden had to leave, but I understand that. As a resident of South Bend, I do live in the city limits of South Bend. Matter of fact, I live blocks from Senator Broden's district, but happen to be represented by Senator Mishler out of Bremen. Senator Mishler and I have spoken on a number of different occasions, but I feel a bit disenfranchised being in the city of South Bend and being represented by a senator in the Bremen area that goes all the way down into Kosciuszko County. I don't really feel like he's representing my interests. So, not to speak against Senator Mishler, but more to speak that it is, here again, an interest that when you do draw the maps, that the person that lives within a certain district is not disenfranchised by being represented by someone else out of their district. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, sir.
My name is Barry Bonbaugh. I live in Granger, Indiana. And I'd like to see us reiterate what some others have said. Basically, square this stuff up, make it as square as possible for all the districts, not only the congressional districts for the U.S. House, but also for the state Senate and state House. I realize that you can't always do that. Populations have to match. But let's try and make this as square and even as possible. I like the idea of the communities of interest, but we have to be real careful about what we're talking about here, communities of interest. I'd like us to see us remain blind to the political makeup of those districts. It doesn't make any sense. There was a group met, they want to have a commission formed. Their idea was to make every race competitive. Well, that's nonsense. In a state that has 55% in one party and 45% in another, you're not going to have every race competitive. So I think you just blind yourself to the political makeup and try and get the community of interest. Obviously, it sounds like what I'm hearing, Elkhart and St. Joe County should be together. And that's the kind of thing you need to look at, economic communities of interest, not just, what somebody else arbitraries. But I know that the communities of interest that people talk about cover a lot more than just that particular area. And as far as the commission, I have to disagree with people who are asking for a commission. We elect you, you represent us to do this job. I do not want to see somebody who I do not elect and does not represent me setting up the boundaries. It may sound nice to have what you call nonpartisan, but I don't know how you're going to get a nonpartisan commission in reality. The group that met at the St. Joe County Public Library like a week and a half ago, they said, well, representatives will choose some and get approved. We'll have the list will be made up by the Supreme Court Justice, who is, I believe, Alan Shepard, the top guy. Well, these are all political appointees or political people, so it's not going to be any different than what it is. You are our representatives, and I want to see you guys keep doing it. I would like to see you get rid of the gerrymandering, but let's keep you guys doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a gentleman on the aisle.
Good morning. My name is Jack Price. I'm from LaGrange County. I've figured out that the majority of the folks have to do with District 2 or wanting to get back to District 2. And I would like to address the same issue. We have 3 townships on the west side of LaGrange County that are split off into the District 2 House race rather than being in District 3. I would sincerely beg that you would consider the fact that they should be put back into, as one of the ladies said, an area where the news comes out of Fort Wayne, and they get their papers out of Fort Wayne, and they get their information out of Fort Wayne, and be represented by a representative from the Fort Wayne area, so that they can have the same representation. And in one case, we have one of those townships that splits a community in half, and consequently, half of the town is served in one district, the other half is served in another district. I think in fairness, we need to, as much as possible, keep county lines as split areas and use those rather than townships within counties. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Someone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Nancy Shriver, and I live in Granger, Indiana. Now, I have an interesting little story here that I'd like to parallel with the problem of gerrymandering that we talked about. I basically live in the city limits of Mishawaka. I have a Granger mailing address and a South Bend phone number. Now, if you don't call that mixing it up, I don't know what you do. But I think that if the state could do a better job of redistricting, then I wouldn't have the situation I'm in, because then the city and maybe the post office would get together and combine us the way it should be. Anyway, I do agree with everyone that has spoken against the gerrymandering and to try to get our districts more in line with each other, as we've talked in our home, that we have much more in common with Elkhart than we do with Kokomo. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Be sure and give Tom your sheet. Thank you. Yes, someone else on the aisle here? And we have sign-up sheets, too, here on the banister, so if you could fill one out for you.
I'm Kimberly Brady. I am from Terre Haute, Indiana. I moved there to be a student, and I choose not to do absentee balloting because I am not represented from Middlebury. I don't know how to even get to Fort Wayne. I know it's about a 2-hour drive. I can drive 5 minutes the other direction and vote for the 2nd district. I'm a junior social work student. I'm very, very informed, and I understand that he had to leave because he's not part of the Broden fiasco. I feel that it makes sense where I'm at now at Vigo County because I'm represented. In Middlebury, I am not represented. I do not have a voice. As a young female, I do not have a voice. And I know other people in the same district in Middlebury do not have a voice. I feel that it's really important to consider that it makes more sense to be an informed voter rather than voting for someone on the ballot because you don't know who they are. They don't go door to door in Middlebury, I can tell you that right now. Vigo County, Terre Haute, they do, because we know our voters and we know who we're voting for in the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
David Doherty, Goshen, Indiana, representing the Goshen Chamber of Commerce, 550 members and about 20,000 employees. You know, the issue of the communities of interest, I think, is one that we feel is very important also. I call them compacted districts, keeping the districts together as far as townships or counties, as much as you can, realizing that it's not always possible, but keeping them together as much as possible is important. And I know that I think of Congressman Wilkins and Representative Wilkins in his district, which stretches up to Elkhart County, a little bit of Elkhart County, and over to Topeka. It's counties I've never visited Topeka. So I think there are those issues of making compacted districts that have economic relationships that are important. So I think as much as you can do that and keep the districts compact and keep county lines or township lines, school district lines together, be a very important thing to see happen. When it comes to the Congressional district, we've been represented out of Fort Wayne. And to be honest, we've had excellent representation from the representative from that area. And the thing I like is for Elkhart County, he gives us 2 representatives to talk to and lobby on issues that are important in our area. So I think we've found it being very, very beneficial having those 2 congressional districts in Elkhart County. And quite honestly, we've had always been a very strong and good relationship with our congressman. And I think it's important that sometimes you may have to initiate that, but the response has been excellent in return. So I think that is really very well. Like I said, sometimes you have to initiate the conversation,
So I would just really stress the issue of keeping townships, school districts, counties where possible together, because there are those economic relationships that are important to arguing these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Don Franz, and I've got a question more than a comment. On your maps over there, you're showing 129,000 population in each group. Is that a law that has to be done?
The populations are to be as near as possible to one man, one vote. So
Is that a law?
Yes.
Thank you.
And may I have your name, please, sir? Tom? Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. My name is Michelle Cornich, and I'm a resident of Elkhart City and Elkhart County. I want to thank all of you for being here. I noticed my state representative, Tim Neese, was also here. I've worked on political campaigns. I've been a member of our community for 20 years. I work in this community. And I have to say that I disagree with the lobbyists in the room that it is best, you best serve our community by keeping Elkhart and Goshen in one congressional district. We struggle as a community to survive with the financial resources that we have. We have a lot of businesses that are here in Elkhart that service businesses that are in Goshen, and vice versa. I would prefer that we have one congressional representative, and of course I have a favorite like everyone else in the room. But the point is that when you have two communities that are less than 10 minutes apart in a drive, represented by two communities, by two different congressional districts, you create more confusion between the voters, between the elected officials, and between business. Community leaders don't know who to turn to all the time. And to have to drive to two different congressional people to get one job done, that doesn't help us as a community. I would prefer that all of Elkhart County, like many of the other people in this community, be tied with St. Joseph County and have one congressional district. And we'll let all the lobbyists and all of the politicians decide how you want to choose the lines. However, when logic comes, it comes to the person who votes. And you need it to be logical to the voter. So I believe it needs to be a legislative decision, but I also think it needs to be an economic decision. I'd like to see one congressional district. I like the idea of townships being together, kept together as possible. But I think we need to stop trying to divide communities that are economically tied together. Where I work, we service the entire northern region of Indiana. However, they're served by too many different elected officials. So I prefer to see Elkhart County kept as one congressional district.
Thank you, Michelle. Be sure and give Representative Saunders your sign-in sheet, Michelle. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, the lights are kind of getting in.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Fleming, and I'm the county chair of the Republican Party in St. Joseph County. I'd just like to make a few comments today. One is that we definitely need to group community of interest with common sense boundaries. My friend Matt Landske got up and made some pretty specific remarks about the forms and the shapes of the boundaries that we have that really make no sense as far as geographic or regional boundary levels. We need to make it logical to end the confusion and to make people more fairly represented. My friend Tim Wesco up here, as an example, I don't know if anybody caught when he introduced himself all the different areas that he represents, but he represents areas of Walkerton, down into Elkhart City, Napanee, and all these cities have very different needs and focuses. And so it's difficult for him to represent those individuals or people in those communities, and it's difficult for the people in those communities to feel that they're adequately represented as such. So I would plead that this group would come out with some very common sense and end the confusion so that the voters of the state of Indiana can feel that they're not disenfranchised and can be adequately represented by their representatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Someone else who would like to present to us this morning? I don't see any hands, so I'm going to thank you very much again, each and every one of you, for attending our hearing this morning and giving us some very candid thoughts on how you feel about the importance of redistricting and how it's developed in the state of Indiana. As I said at the beginning, this process, your participation is very important to us. We will share the information, the notes and thoughts that you gave us this morning with all of our colleagues as we go through this process. I would note, because someone did mention, and we did not mention it in our opening remarks, there are 3 off-site computer centers that have been set up in the state. One is at IU South Bend. The second is at IUPUI in Indianapolis, and the third is at IU Bloomington. The university has cooperated mightily with us to get that done. Last time we had one off-site computer that could be accessed by the public, and it was at the library in Indianapolis. So we're expanding our horizons, and I did want to bring that to your attention. There was a press release on the table in the back, but I think they've all been picked up, and they noted the addresses of those libraries and where you might access that facility. So thank you again. Be sure and look at the maps. They are the 2001 redistricting maps. We appreciate your participation. Thank you very much.